Howdy everyone, and welcome back to The More You Grow. In my last video y'all saw where I showed you how to grow your very own turmeric in containers. Turmeric is a very easy plant to grow in containers. It's a very beautiful plant and you get a wonderful harvest in a very small space. If you haven't seen that video yet, I'm going to leave a link to that video up above and you go check that out first, because in this video I'm going to show you how to tell when to harvest your turmeric and how you can go about harvesting it, and then you can see just how much we get out of a container of this size. So let's get into it and let's go check it out. So first of all, let's talk about how to tell when to harvest your turmeric if you're growing it in containers. The best way I can tell you to be able to look for is look for the tightness in the container. This container is about to bust. It's so tight you can even see like the bulges around this pot right here. This pot can't take it anymore. It is done. I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to get this out of this pot without cutting it. We're gonna find out. The other way I can just tell is you can just see that these plants are out of space. These plants are about as big as they're gonna get. Turmeric can stay beautiful for a very long time. These are a little bit yellow just because they were left in a spot that gets a little bit too much water. They are normally not this color. They're a dark green, a bright green. I'll leave another picture on the screen here for you to see what they look like when they're at their best. But these, I'm not too worried. I could move them and they would probably green back up if I gave them a little fertilizer and got them out of the water like they're getting. This would green back up, but there's not really much point because these are at their peak. They're not gonna get any bigger. They're about to bust the pot open themselves. So let's get right into it and I'll show you how I go about harvesting this, and you can see just how much you can get out of a container this size. So what I have here is just a container that I use for many things in this greenhouse. And what I like to do is I go ahead and I cut the tops off of this turmeric just to make it a little bit more manageable. You could potentially try to separate these plants, like pull them out of the container, separate the plants and give them their own containers. But I have so many plants as of right now that there's not really much need for me to do that. You pretty well could if you wanted to. If you really want to try to separate these plants, there are 3 plants in this container. And I do that on purpose because one, it saves on space, but also because a little bit of competition is good for these guys. It makes it to where they start gathering more nutrients and try to compete against each other to where they will beef up their rhizomes in a storage kind of state. So I like to put 2 or 3 plants together in a pot for those reasons. But like I said, in this case, I'm not too worried about trying to separate these, as I have plenty more plants that are here in the greenhouse and I'm trying to save more space at the time. So I just go through here and we start cutting the tops off of these plants. So we just start taking these off. You can compost these. These would make wonderful green material for your compost, just because they do have so much water in them that they add a little bit of moisture to your compost. They are good for a lot of different things like that. If you have any other uses for the leaves that you know of, if in your family or your culture you use the leaves for some application, please let me know, because I get lots of leaves. I just don't know what to do with them. So we're going to go through here and make this a little bit more manageable, cut all these tops off of them, and then after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try to dump this whole container into my brown pot here, or my brown container that's next to me. And then we will try to work away this soil. So once I get these all cut here, we're almost done. The last few. There we go, the last bit. And ta-da. And I could potentially, it looks like I have a small little start here. I could divide that off and try to start propagating that one. So the funny thing is, this pot is so tight, I'm not going to be able to dump this out, so I've got to cut it off the actual container itself. So let me show you what it looks like when I get this cut off. So here you can see what we have once we get the pot cut away. There are multiple of these little, I call them the tubers. I'm not really sure if they're an actual tuber, but what we're really going for in here are the rhizomes. You're gonna see a difference in what I'm calling the tuber, which are these. They're kind of at the end of a root, and then there are the actual rhizome pieces that people are used to seeing. So I have this taken apart here. I'll bring you up a little higher. I'm gonna put it in this tub to where I don't lose all of this soil. So I'll be with you in just a second. All right, so I've got it in the tub here, and what I'm just gonna do is I'm gonna try to just start working away the soil the best that I can. I wanna try to keep these intact as best as possible, just because then it will be a little bit easier for me to show you kind of what we've got going on here. And I don't really like breaking the pieces as much as I can because it makes it look a lot more satisfying. So I usually try to separate the little, what I call tubers, from the rest of the plant, because a lot of times they're closest to the edge. And so you have pieces like that, you see. And I usually separate these out just a bit. And I have not tried to propagate the plant from the little tubers. I usually use the rhizomes, so I may try to do that with some of these, because these are some pretty healthy ones. These are some nice little storage tubers here. They do have roots on them, so I'm thinking they might be able to grow. I usually use the rhizomes themselves rather than these pieces, just because I know they grow well. But if you know anything about these tuber-like structures, you want to give me a heads up about what I've got here, please let me know, because I would love to know a little bit more about these. I see them all the time, but I usually go for the rhizomes inside more often. So I'm just going to work away the soil a little at a time. I may time lapse this, guys, because this is going to be a process to get into. Alright, so what I've done, it's taken a little bit, but I like to try to remove as much soil as I can by hand, to where I have mostly just the roots and the rhizomes left. So I like to put them down in a container with holes in them, and I give them a little light rinse, and it helps to break some of that soil loose. One. So you can see here we have a wonderful harvest from one plant. That is just one plant, guys. So still a little bit of soil in there, but I like to just rinse it and then let it dry down. I'll break it apart a little bit here in a minute. Some of these pieces will come off if you're not careful. Let's see. So you'll get a few pieces like that breaks off. It's no big deal. They will dry down and do just fine. Check it out, guys. You have a wonderful harvest of turmeric here. So the only step left is we're going to let this dry down for a bit. Take any of our broken pieces, try to find them. And then we're gonna let this dry down for a little bit. All right, guys, so it's been a little bit since I've harvested the turmeric. I usually like to let it dry down a little bit, so that way it's a little easier to get all the soil out of it and everything like that. But I wanted to show you what we have here. We got probably around 6 pounds, maybe 5-6 pounds of turmeric here. This clump alone's probably 1.5 to 2 pounds here. And when I get it pulled all apart, I will see if I can try to weigh that. I don't really have a scale for that. at the moment. I learned a hard lesson with this set of turmeric, because normally what I do is I put it under a covered porch of some kind, or I'll take it into my classroom, allow it to dry down. I just like to get good airflow around it. I thought maybe it'd be something that would speed up the process a little bit, help it dry down if I just left it here in the greenhouse on one of my dry benches to where it will dry down. Well, I learned a little lesson. It's not a big deal. It's just this top layer that got affected, but the turmeric will bleach out in the sun pretty easily. So this top layer kind of lost some of that vibrant orange color. The bottom layers are still pretty good, but I just happened to learn that, thought I would share that with y'all. I'm not above making mistakes. I'm not above sharing the mistakes that I make in hopes that maybe someone else will learn a little bit from it. So just being transparent there, make sure you put these somewhere where they're out of direct sunlight. Yes, they dried down really good. I like the skin that they developed on there. That's what I was trying to get, but we lost some of the color in the process. So try to dry them down in less sunlight or out of direct sunlight. But again, not a big deal. It's just the top layer, because these back layers that weren't exposed to the sun are still good and orange. Just something I learned along the way. But yeah, guys, we got a pretty good harvest out of just one container. That was just one 3-gallon container, had 3 plants in it, and all together, I think these are gonna be some pretty good snacking. So if you like this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you have any good recipes for me on using fresh turmeric, I would love to hear those down in the comments, because I love to grow this stuff. Haven't used it a whole lot in cooking as of yet. So if you have any really good recipes for fresh turmeric like this, please let me know down in the comments. If you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Go check us out on Facebook and Instagram, and hit that bell icon for notifications. Until next time, I hope you'll join me right here on The More You Grow.